My mother-in-law called me a gold digger, until the Secret Service secured the house. You married him for money. My mother-in-law screamed across the Thanksgiving table, her voice shrill enough to make the crystal glasses hum. You're nothing but a leech. I set down my fork carefully, maintaining the calm I'd learned through 15 years of high-stakes negotiations with cartel leaders and terrorist cells. Around the table, 32 members of the Collins family watched with expressions ranging from discomfort to outright agreement. Mom, please, my husband Robert said weakly, the same ineffectual protest he'd been making for 8 years. Please nothing. Margaret Collins stood, her Chanel suit immaculate, her fury calculated for maximum impact. Look at her, Robert. Goodwill clothes, no jewelry except that pathetic wedding band, driving that ancient Honda. She trapped you, and everyone here knows it. The ancient Honda was actually a carefully maintained cover vehicle with bulletproof glass and an encrypted communication system in the trunk. But Margaret saw what she wanted to see, a woman unworthy of her precious son. She doesn't even have a real job, Margaret continued, playing to her audience. Some made-up position at the Justice Department. What is it you do again, Rebecca? File paperwork. Answer phones for real lawyers. Something like that, I replied evenly. Robert's cousin Tony, a sergeant with the Boston Police Department, laughed from his end of the table. Justice Department. Right. Probably a temp secretary who puts on airs. I've seen the type. If only he knew that his temp secretary had just finished a 6-month operation that dismantled the largest human trafficking ring on the eastern seaboard. That the made-up position was actually director of the Criminal Intelligence Division, a role that reported directly to the Attorney General and oversaw 8,000 federal agents across 56 field offices. When Robert brought you home, Margaret continued, warming to her theme, I knew immediately what you were. A nobody from nowhere who saw dollar signs. Robert was making partner at the firm, had family money, a future. And you? She gestured dismissively. What did you have? A cheap apartment and government wages. The cheap apartment was a secure residence in Foggy Bottom. The government wages were a GS 15-step 10 salary plus executive bonuses that actually exceeded Robert's law firm earnings. Not that I'd ever mentioned it. 8 years, Margaret announced. 8 years of watching you drag my son down. No children, probably can't even give him that. No contribution to the family business. Just taking, always taking. Robert's sister Jennifer chimed in, emboldened. Remember when she couldn't come to the Cape House last summer? Said she had to work. Who works during August? It's like she doesn't want to be part of this family. I'd been in Mexico last August, personally negotiating with the Sinaloa cartel for the release of 3 DEA agents. But sure, Jennifer, I was avoiding your beach house. My phone, the real one, not the decoy, vibrated against my ribs. The pattern meant priority 1. I glanced at it discreetly. Flash traffic, credible threat detected. Security protocols initiated. Detail en route. My blood went cold. Someone had made a threat against me credible enough to trigger automatic protection protocols. In my line of work, that could mean anything from a cartel hit squad to a terrorist cell. Are you even listening? Margaret shrieked. This is exactly what I mean. Always on that phone, probably texting other men, looking for the next meal ticket when Robert wises up and divorces you. I stood, already calculating exit routes and defensive positions. I need to make a call. Of course you do, Margaret said triumphantly. Running away, as usual. Can't face the truth. I stepped onto the back deck, immediately scanning for threats while speed dialing my deputy. Director Collins, Agent Harrison answered immediately. We have a situation. Intercepted communications suggest the Kozlov Bratva has activated assets in Boston. Your location may be compromised. The Kozlov Bratva, the Russian mob family whose money laundering operation I'd personally destroyed 6 months ago, resulting in 300 arrests and $2 billion in seized assets. They'd promised revenge. How long until the detail arrives? 3 minutes. Local Leos are being notified to clear a corridor. Through the glass doors, I could see the family still talking, Margaret gesturing wildly, everyone nodding along with her character assassination of me. They had no idea that in 3 minutes, their Thanksgiving was about to become a federal crime scene. That's when I saw it, a van pulling up across the street, no plates, tinted windows. My hand moved instinctively to my concealed Glock 19. Harrison, possible hostile vehicle, 12 o'clock. White van, no plates. Copy. 60 seconds out, Director. Do not engage unless necessary. The van door started to open. I drew my weapon, keeping it low, and moved back inside. Everyone needs to get away from the windows. Now. Tony laughed. What are you? The sound hit like a wave, sirens from every direction, the distinctive whoop of federal vehicles converging. Through the front window, black Suburbans screeched to a stop, doors flying open, agents in tactical gear pouring out. Down. Everybody down. Federal agents. The front door didn't open, it was breached. The explosive entry sent it flying off its hinges as agents flooded in, weapons drawn, red laser dots painting the walls. Secret Service, FBI, U.S. Marshals, the full Federal Protection Protocol. Director Collins, are you secure? Tony, the cop who'd called me a temp secretary, had his face pressed to the floor, hands behind his head, his police training kicking in even as his mind tried to process what was happening. Secure, I called back. Possible hostiles in white van across the street. Half the agents immediately redirected, surrounding the van with overwhelming force. The other half began securing the house, checking every room, every closet, every potential hiding spot. Special Agent in Charge Davidson approached me, offering a ballistic vest. We need to move you to a secure location. The threat assessment is critical. What threat? Margaret whispered from where she cowered behind the overturned dining table. What's happening? Davidson looked at her with professional detachment. There's been a credible assassination threat against Director Collins. This location is being secured. Director. Robert's voice was strangled. Director of what? I was already putting on the vest, my movements practiced. Criminal Intelligence Division, Department of Justice. I oversee all federal criminal intelligence operations in the United States. Tony's head shot up from the floor. That's impossible. That position requires 15 years of federal service, minimum, I finished. Top secret SCI clearance with polygraph. Congressional approval. Presidential appointment. I've had all of that since before I married Robert. Through the window, we could see the van's occupants being pulled out at gunpoint, forced to the ground, searched. One of them matched the photos in our database, Dmitry Kozlov, nephew of the Bratva boss. Margaret's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Jennifer had actually fainted. Robert stood frozen, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror. My phone rang. The Attorney General. Rebecca, I just heard. Are you secure? Yes, sir. The detail has the situation contained. The President has been briefed. He wants to know if you need additional resources. I glanced around at the family members sitting on the floor, surrounded by federal agents, their Thanksgiving destroyed by the reality of who I actually was. Negative, sir. Standard protocol is sufficient. Good. Rebecca, I'm sorry this happened during your family time. We'll need you at the SCIF within the hour for a full debrief. Understood. Tony, his cop instincts overriding his shock, pulled out his radio to check in with his department. The response made him go pale. All units, be advised, federal operation in progress Beacon Hill. Do not approach. Repeat, do not approach. Federal authorization supersedes all local jurisdiction. He looked at me with new eyes. That's the Presidential Protection Protocol. Who the hell are you? Someone who just prevented your family from being collateral damage in a Bratva hit, I replied, watching through the window as Dmitry Kozlov was loaded into an armored vehicle. The man in that van had enough firepower to level this house. Robert finally found his voice. You're telling me that for 8 years, while my mother called you a gold digger, while my family mocked you for being poor, you were running federal intelligence operations? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in years. I told you I worked for the Justice Department. I told you my work was classified. I told you I couldn't discuss details. You never asked for more. Neither did your family. You all just assumed I was nobody because I didn't wear designer clothes or drive expensive cars. Agent Davidson approached. Director, the house is secure. The suspects are in custody. We need to relocate you to the safe house. Margaret, still on the floor, grabbed at my ankle as I passed. This can't be real. You can't be. Important. I finished. Successful. Worth more than the money you think I married your son for. I gently removed her hand. I make twice what Robert makes. I've made it since the day we met. I never needed his money. I needed a partner, someone who saw me as more than my job. But all any of you saw was someone beneath you. Another agent interrupted. The Attorney General is requesting immediate transport to the SCIF. I nodded, then turned back to the family one last time. You know what the real irony is, Margaret? You spent 8 years calling me a leech, a gold digger, nothing. But when the Bratva came for me, because I destroyed their empire, they came here. To your house. Your family was in danger because of my work, and you never even knew it. We could have been killed. Jennifer whispered. Yes, but you weren't, because despite 8 years of your contempt, I still did my job. I still protected you. That's what nothing looks like. Someone who saves your life while you're insulting them over turkey. As the agents escorted me toward the door, Robert called out desperately. Rebecca, wait. We need to talk about this. No, I said simply. We needed to talk 8 years ago when your mother first called me a gold digger and you said nothing. We needed to talk every Thanksgiving when your family mocked my clothes and my car and you stayed silent. We needed to talk when you agreed with them that my job wasn't important. Outside, a motorcade of black vehicles waited, engines running. A helicopter circled overhead, federal eye in the sky. The entire street had been locked down, neighbors pressed against windows, recording everything. Tony stumbled out onto the porch. Director Collins. The department, they want to know if you need local support. Negative. Tell your chief I'll send a full brief through channels. As I climbed into the armored Suburban, I saw Margaret standing in the doorway, her perfect Thanksgiving in ruins, her perfect family narrative destroyed. She'd wanted so badly to prove I was nothing, a nobody who'd trapped her son. Instead, she'd learned that the nobody she'd despised was somebody the federal government considered worth protecting with overwhelming force. That the gold digger she'd scorned had been protecting the country, and by extension, her family, while enduring their contempt. The motorcade pulled away, leaving the Collins family standing in their destroyed foyer, surrounded by federal agents who would spend the next 6 hours processing their house as a crime scene. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. Robert tried to claim emotional distress, saying I'd hidden my identity. The federal judge, who had security clearance and understood exactly what my job entailed, laughed him out of court. Margaret attempted to contact me repeatedly, alternating between apologies and demands for explanations. I never responded. She'd had 8 years to see me as more than a gold digger. The Secret Service showing up to save her life didn't erase those years of contempt. The Kozlov Bratva operation made headlines. Federal director targeted in assassination attempt, family saved by Secret Service. Margaret tried to spin it as her always knowing I was special, always supporting me. But the internet found her old social media posts mocking her pathetic daughter-in-law and the narrative wrote itself. I returned to my work, coordinating with CIA, NSA, DEA, and FBI on operations that would never make the news. The Attorney General put me up for the Director's Award for maintaining operational security under personal threat. The President called to thank me for my service. But the moment that mattered most came 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, when Tony, the cop cousin, requested a meeting. He sat across from me in my actual office, the one with bulletproof glass and signal-blocking walls, and said simply, I've been a cop for 15 years. I thought I knew what law enforcement looked like. But watching you that day, calm under threat, coordinating federal response while my family insulted you, I realized I don't know anything. Would you consider letting me apply for your division? I looked at him, the man who'd called me a temp secretary, now asking to work under my command. The application process is rigorous, I said. Most don't make it. I know, but I want to learn from someone who took down the Bratva while my aunt called her a leech. I slid him an application. No special treatment because you're family. Former family, he corrected. And I wouldn't expect any. He left with the packet, and I returned to my work. The work Margaret Collins had dismissed as nothing. The work that had saved her life. The work that mattered more than her designer suits or country club memberships. She'd called me a gold digger, convinced I'd married Robert for money. The truth was simpler and sadder. I'd married him for love, hoping his family would eventually see me for who I was. It took the Secret Service, the FBI, and an assassination attempt for them to see the truth. By then, it was too late. Some respect, once withheld, can never be recovered, no matter how many federal agents secure your house.